Hello and welcome to Csis 235 Object-Oriented Programming. I'm Dr. Anthony Varghese from the Department of Computer Science, Information Systems, University of Wisconsin-River Falls. This is lecture 1, first in a series of videos. This is going to be, I think, maybe a long series of videos about what I expect you to know about Java based on Computer Science 161, 162, and based on what the instructors of those classes have told me about what they cover. So, just a second while I adjust this. All right. So what do I expect you to know from Computer Science 161, 162, that's Programming 1 and 2. 161 is an introduction to fundamental computer concepts and structured programming techniques. We use the language Java, and we show how you can the basic concepts of program analysis, design, implementation, debugging, and testing. So by the end of this, you should know, definitely you should know how to write a program. You should know how to do things like set up loops, use the basic data types, know the differences between the basic data types, and know how to approach writing programs. Conditional execution and loops, that's if statements, switch statements, while loops, do while, for loops. Usually write a simple GUI application, although some of you I know have learned that in Computer Science 162. Okay, so this is a description of the 161 course. I'm hoping that this is all stuff that you've done. You should be able to write methods. Then 162, we look at arrays. Unless you looked at it in 161. One of these courses, usually one or the other, will teach you arrays and methods. 162 is just a continuation of the fundamental computer concepts that you just absolutely have to know for any programming language, and Java is the language that we use, but you should be able to transfer this to any other language. That's the idea. So definitely methods. You should have used exceptions, and if not, I'll go over some of this. Definitely file I/O. Can you read to a file? Can you read from a file and write to a file? That's very basic. Those kinds of operations. After 1 year of programming, you just have to know. Even if you didn't spend a lot of time doing it in the course, that's something. If you say you've had a year of programming, you better know it, basically. Arrays and how to use them for things like searching, sorting, things like that. And then finally, classes. You want some minimal background in setting up classes. And in this course, we'll be writing tons of classes. So I want to be ready for that. Okay. These are the notes from an instructor who taught CSIS 162. He wanted to let me know where people should be in CSIS 235, that is this course. So he said CS 162 worked well this semester with a new book, a new sequence, and this should be the new book that you're using. And here's a list of what students in 235 should know very well. Reading and writing from /to text files, so you should be able to do that. We'll do reading and writing to files, from and to files, and we'll use some more complex ways of writing to files. Okay, so that's I don't expect you to know, but basic text files, you have to know that. Methods, rules of scope, what variables are, let's say, visible inside a certain scope. 1 and 2D arrays, being able to search inside arrays. Classes and objects, you should be able to set up classes. You should know things like static versus non-static variables, static and non-static methods. So methods and data members, static and non-static, all of those things those are things that you definitely should know. Arrays of objects, so not just arrays of ints and floats and doubles and so on. You should also be able to, you also should be comfortable with arrays of objects. Inheritance, composition, full understanding of is a relationship and has a relationship, what are the differences. Once again, those are things that we will go over, but definitely knowing about these things in advance makes all the difference, makes this course a lot easier. You should know about abstract classes, abstract methods. You should know about polymorphism, definitely very important ideas that I'm hoping that you've seen, and we will cover this in more detail, I think, in this course. And interfaces. You have to know what interfaces are. I'm guessing everyone who has used a graphical user interface will have used the action listener interface. That should sound familiar. And that's what makes things like button clicks and combo boxes, those kinds of things work, is action listener. Okay, so now let's review some of the basics. Primitive data types, pretty straightforward. You have byte, which is a single byte. That's a single byte as in like megabytes, that kind of byte. There's also a type called byte, which is coincidentally just a single byte. A short is 2 bytes. Int is 4 bytes, and in Java, a long is 8 bytes. There are real types, that is real numbers, real as in real numbers, as in numbers with a decimal point and a fractional part. So those are called floating point numbers. Typically we say floating point numbers. There's two main types, float and double. And the operations for these types include addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and for ints you can also do remainder or modulo. There's also a char type. These are values that include letters, upper and lowercase letters, digits, punctuation marks, spaces, all those things. And booleans, Boolean variables can only have one of 2 values, either true or false. So these are all keywords or reserved words in Java. Boolean, true, false, those are all reserved words. Alright, so how do you set up names? What are the rules for naming things? So in Java they're called identifiers. Well, they're called identifiers in most programming languages. And so the idea is we use identifiers to name things, not only variables, but also method names, class names, things like that. A Java identifier is a sequence of characters consisting of letters, digits, dollar signs, and or underscores. An identifier can be any length but cannot begin with a digit. So anything else it can begin with. So it can start with letters, start with dollar signs, and underscores. So technically speaking, this is a valid variable name. If you don't believe me, definitely try this out because it'll work. So thing is, this is valid. You probably don't want to probably don't want to set up variables by that are named like this because it's hard to read. No one would want to read a program that has variable names like that. So I'm assuming also that you know how to use Eclipse. I just started up Eclipse. I use the Java version. And I'm going to start up a new Java project. You should be able to do stuff like this. I'm hoping everyone has seen this. No surprises at all. You can set up a name. And I just happen to be using Java 1.6. I really should update to something else. 1.8 is pretty much out, so 1.7 would be good. Java 1.7. If you're using that, that's fine. Okay, so you should be able to open this up. You should see a source. Sorry about that. Run that in the background. Run some updates. Now I can set up a new class. And let's call it simple one. I have a main method. I'm hoping everyone can read all of this. I'm hoping the text is not too small. What I can do is that does look small, unfortunately. And so I am going to take a couple of seconds to make it bigger. open up my preferences and go to Java, editor, text editors, colors and fonts, text font, and let's make it really big. And this will just take a couple of seconds to apply. And we got a crash. Alright, so while Eclipse is starting up, I just want to say a couple of things about identifiers. So you can have identifiers start with an uppercase or lowercase letter. Uppercase letters usually mean you're looking at classes. Lowercase letters are usually used for regular variables and method names. So method names would typically usually start with a lowercase letter. You cannot have any identifier that is a name of a variable, method, class, any of that, start with a number. That's definitely not allowed. You cannot have punctuation like exclamation or bang. It's called bang sometimes, some by computer programmers. You cannot have a minus sign or hyphen, whichever one you use. You cannot have the dot operator. That's got a very special meaning in Java, and so you cannot have, you can have an object A and a data member B, but you cannot have an int a.b. Like that just won't work. It's just not possible in Java. That would be an invalid name. Okay, let me try this again. Try to set the size. Oh, I think that's probably what made it crash, as I'm running some updates in the background. Oh, alright. Looks like I'm going to have to resize this later. So, in the meantime, I'm going to switch back to the slides. Let's move on with other Java. Fun Java facts. So identifiers are case sensitive. So all of these are different. You can have all lowercase, the first letter be uppercase, everything else lowercase, all uppercase, and a mix of those. So, and these are all different. These are considered to be different things. So you can have an int all lowercase total, int all uppercase total, a mix of them too. Okay, and there are a number of keywords and identifier literals that are reserved for special purposes. For example, things like if. Right? You can't say int if, because if is a literal that's reserved for the if statement. So these things cannot be used as identifiers. You cannot use them as names. You cannot have a method that's called if. It'd be nice, but unfortunately you cannot do that. And there are literal identifier literals like true, false, null. These are all reserved as well. Some guidelines in choosing identifiers: use lowercase characters mostly for most variables. If you have class names, you want to capitalize the first letter of a class name. Always have the first letter of the class name uppercase. Now, does Java prevent you from doing this? No. These are just guidelines. You want to choose descriptive names for everything. That reduces the number of comments that you will need. At the same time, you don't want to make it too long. Try to make it somewhat short. I'd say less than 20 characters would be good. More than that is probably not a good idea. At the same time, you want to avoid abbreviations. Be specific about what the names mean, and make differences between closely related variables. Try to make those things obvious. Okay, so I want to stop here and continue with another video in this series.